Salmon. Salmon gives you around 14 grams of protein for every 100 calories you eat. That number might seem low for a food that has a strong reputation as a protein source, and by the end of this section, the reason will be clear. But first, why are we measuring protein per 100 calories and not per 100 grams like most nutrition labels do? Take peanut butter. Per 100 grams, it has around 25 grams of protein. That sounds impressive, but those same 100 grams also carry around 590 calories, mostly from fat. To get a meaningful amount of protein from peanut butter, you would need to eat a lot of it. And with that comes a very large number of calories. Measuring per 100 grams tells you how much protein is packed into the weight of the food. It does not tell you how much protein you are actually getting relative to how much energy you are consuming. There is another issue. Some foods are dried or dehydrated, things like jerky or dried fish. When water is removed from a food, the weight goes down, but the nutrients stay, so the protein number per 100 grams goes up, not because the food became more nutritious, but simply because you removed the water. Comparing a fresh food to a dried version using grams as the unit gives a distorted picture. Calories do not disappear when water is removed, so using calories as the unit keeps the comparison fair. Now back to salmon. The reason it sits lower on this list than most people expect is fat. Salmon is naturally high in fat, specifically omega-3 fatty acids, a type of fat the body cannot produce on its own and has to get from food. Because salmon has significant fat content, its calorie count per 100 grams is relatively high, which brings the protein per calorie ratio down. This doesn't make salmon a poor food choice. It means this metric measures one specific thing: how much protein you get per calorie eaten. Salmon scores lower here than many other fish because of its fat content, not because it lacks protein. Non-fat cottage cheese. Non-fat cottage cheese gives you around 14.2 grams of protein per 100 calories. It is a soft, fresh cheese made from cow's milk, and most of the protein in it is casein, a type of protein that digests slowly compared to others, meaning the body absorbs it gradually over several hours rather than all at once. The non-fat version ranks higher than full-fat cottage cheese on this metric for a straightforward reason. Removing the fat reduces the calorie content, so you end up with more protein relative to the calories. Same food, less fat, better ratio. It has a mild, slightly creamy taste and works well as a standalone snack or mixed with other foods. It is also one of the more accessible and affordable options on this list. Lean beef, specifically sirloin, gives you around 14.3 grams of protein per 100 calories. Beef in general has a strong reputation as a high-protein food, and that reputation is mostly earned. But the specific number depends heavily on which cut you are eating. Sirloin is one of the leaner cuts of beef. It has relatively little fat compared to cuts like ribeye, which comes from the same animal but has significantly more fat marbled through the meat. That fat difference matters directly for this metric. The more fat a cut of beef has, the higher its calorie count, and the lower the protein per calorie ratio drops. A ribeye and a sirloin are both beef, but they behave very differently on this scale. The pattern is consistent across all meat. As fat goes up, the protein per calorie number goes down. The animal matters less than the cut. Seitan. Seitan gives you around 17 grams of protein per 100 calories, and it is the highest ranking plant-based food on this list. Seitan is made from wheat gluten. Gluten is the main protein found in wheat, and seitan is essentially what remains after most of the starch is washed away, leaving a dense, chewy, high-protein product. It is used widely as a meat substitute, and can be prepared in many ways: pan-fried, grilled, braised, or added to stews. One important note: seitan is not suitable for people with celiac disease or gluten intolerance. For anyone without that condition, seitan is a legitimate high-protein option, particularly for those avoiding animal products. Scallops. Scallops give you around 17.4 grams of protein per 100 calories, and they are probably the most overlooked item on this entire list. Scallops almost never come up in conversations about high-protein eating, yet they rank higher on this list than most meats people eat on a daily basis. Scallops are a type of shellfish. They have almost no fat, which is exactly why they rank this high. Nearly all of their calories come from protein. The meat is firm, slightly sweet, and mild in flavor. Fresh scallops are widely available at fish counters, but frozen scallops are just as nutritious and significantly more affordable. For most people, frozen is the practical option, and there is no meaningful difference in protein content between fresh and frozen. Pork tenderloin. Pork tenderloin gives you around 18.3 grams of protein per 100 calories. For most people, this comes as a surprise. Pork has a strong reputation for being a fatty meat, and that reputation is deserved for most cuts. Tenderloin is a very different story. The tenderloin is a long, narrow muscle that runs along the backbone of the pig. Compare it to pork belly, which is the cut used for bacon. Pork belly is extremely high in fat, while tenderloin is almost entirely lean muscle. They come from the same animal, but nutritionally, they are on opposite ends of the spectrum. The practical takeaway is the same as with beef. The animal is less important than the cut. Chicken breast. Chicken breast gives you around 18.8 grams of protein per 100 calories. For most people, chicken breast is the first food that comes to mind when they think of high-protein eating. It is widely eaten, easy to prepare, and available everywhere. What often surprises people is that it ranks 7th out of 14 on this list. It is still a very good source of protein, but it is not the most efficient one, mostly because it still carries a moderate amount of fat, even in its leanest form. The difference between skin-on and skinless chicken breast is worth knowing. The skin is mostly fat. Leaving it on raises the calorie count noticeably, which brings the protein per calorie number down. The numbers in this video refer to skinless chicken breast. Crab. Crab gives you around 20 grams of protein per 100 calories. It consistently gets overlooked in conversations about high-protein foods, even though its numbers are close to lobster and well above chicken breast. Like most shellfish, crab is extremely lean. It has almost no fat, which means nearly all of its calories come from protein. The meat is firm, slightly sweet, and works well in many preparations. Fresh crab is widely available in coastal areas, but can be expensive and time-consuming to prepare. Canned crab meat is a practical and affordable alternative that retains essentially the same protein content, making it a realistic everyday option rather than an occasional meal. Egg whites. Egg whites give you around 21 grams of protein per 100 calories. To understand why this number is so much higher than a whole egg, it helps to understand what the yolk actually contributes. A whole egg gives you roughly 8 grams of protein per 100 calories. The egg white alone gives you 21 grams. The difference comes entirely from the yolk. The yolk contains almost all of the egg's fat, and that fat brings a significant number of extra calories with it. Remove the yolk, and what remains is nearly pure protein with very few calories, which is exactly what the egg white is. This is not an argument against eating whole eggs. The yolk contains vitamins and nutrients that the white does not have. The point is simply that the protein per calorie metric measures one thing, and on that specific measure, egg whites perform very differently from whole eggs. Protein powder. People often assume that protein powder sits far above real food on this kind of metric. Pure whey protein isolate, one of the most refined protein supplements available, comes in at around 21 grams of protein per 100 calories. That is essentially the same number as egg whites, and roughly the same as several other foods on this list. Supplements are more concentrated by weight, but when you measure by calories rather than grams, the gap between powder and real food is much smaller than most people expect. Tuna. Tuna gives you around 21 grams of protein per 100 calories, but that number applies specifically to fresh tuna, or tuna canned in water. The form you buy changes the number significantly. Tuna canned in oil drops to around 12.5 grams of protein per 100 calories. The tuna itself is the same. What changes is the added oil, which increases the calorie count without adding any protein. That single difference cuts the protein per calorie ratio nearly in half. Canned tuna in water is one of the most practical foods on this entire list. It is shelf-stable, requires no cooking, is available almost everywhere, and is among the most affordable protein sources by both weight and calorie. Whitefish. These 4 fish, cod, halibut, tilapia, and Mahi-Mahi, are grouped together because their protein per calorie numbers are nearly identical, all falling between 21 and 22 grams per 100 calories. The reason they are all so close is simple. They are all lean, white-fleshed fish with very low fat content. Almost all of their calories come from protein, with very little fat contributing to the calorie count. What they share is a mild flavor, which makes them among the easiest fish to prepare and incorporate into different meals compared to stronger-tasting varieties. Lobster. Lobster gives you somewhere between 21 and 25 grams of protein per 100 calories, depending on the species and how it is prepared. That range is wide enough that a single precise number would be misleading, so it is more accurate to say it belongs near the top of this list regardless of which end of that range you use. The reason for the high number is the same as with other shellfish. Lobster meat is almost entirely lean protein with virtually no fat. It is one of the leanest animal foods available. Lobster is also the most expensive item on this list, by a significant margin. That does not affect its nutritional profile, but it does affect how realistic it is as a regular part of most people's diets. The number reflects what is in the food, not how practical it is to eat regularly. Turkey breast. Turkey breast gives you around 22 grams of protein per 100 calories, which puts it above chicken breast and nearly every other meat on this list. Despite that, turkey breast is rarely the first food people reach for when building a high-protein diet. It is leaner than chicken breast and has a similar mild flavor, making it just as versatile in cooking. The reasons people default to chicken over turkey are mostly habit and familiarity, not nutrition. One distinction worth making: this number refers to whole turkey breast, either roasted or cooked at home. Deli-sliced turkey is a different product. It is typically processed, contains added sodium, and sometimes includes fillers or preservatives. The nutrition profile of deli turkey does not match the number above. Shrimp. Shrimp gives you around 24 grams of protein per 100 calories, the highest number on this list. Shrimp is almost entirely protein and water, with virtually no fat. That combination means the calorie count stays very low while the protein content stays high, which produces the best protein per calorie ratio of any food covered here. Shrimp is also one of the more accessible options on this list. Fresh shrimp can be expensive depending on where you live, but frozen shrimp is widely available, affordable, and has essentially the same nutritional content. It cooks quickly and works in a large number of different preparations, making it one of the more practical foods on this list, despite its position at the top.